Greetings to you today and welcome to our daily Devo for Friday. It is day 27 of Lent today and the date is March the 15th. Our reading today is from Mark chapter 11, verses 1 through 19. Mark chapter 11, verses 1 through 19. As Jesus and his disciples approached Jerusalem, they came to the towns of Bethphage and Bethany on the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent two of them on ahead. Go into that village over there, he told them. As soon as you enter it, you will see a young donkey tied there that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks, "What are you doing?" just say, "The Lord needs it and will return it soon." The two disciples left and found the colt standing in the street, tied outside the front door. As they were untying it, some bystanders demanded, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They said what Jesus had told them to say, and they were permitted to take it. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their garments over it, and he sat on it. Many in the crowd spread their garments on the road ahead of him, and others spread leafy branches they had cut in the fields. Jesus was in the center of the procession, and the people all around him were shouting, "Praise God! Blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessings on the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Praise God in highest heaven." So Jesus came to Jerusalem and went into the temple. After looking around carefully at everything, he left because it was late in the afternoon. Then he returned to Bethany with the 12 disciples. The next morning, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. He noticed a fig tree in full leaf a little way off, and he went over to see if he could find any figs. But there were only leaves, because it was too early in the season for fruit. And then Jesus said to the tree, "May no one ever eat your fruit again." And the disciples heard him say it. When they arrived back in Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple and began to drive out the people buying and selling animals for sacrifices. He knocked over the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. And he stopped everyone from using the temple as a marketplace. He said to them, "The scriptures declare, my temple will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have turned it into a den of thieves." When the leading priests and teachers of religious law heard what Jesus had done, they began planning how to kill him. But they were afraid of him because the people were so amazed at his teaching. That evening, Jesus and the disciples left the city. I'm assuming there's a point to our authors constantly bringing us to these scenes, Old Testament and New, where God's people aren't living in a way to please God. And God is unhappy with them. Jesus here is unhappy with the way they're abusing the temple and what it's supposed to be versus what they were doing, and some of the crooked dealings that were going on temple grounds. It is Lent. We have been challenged in the days of Lent throughout church history to allow the Spirit to search our hearts, know our minds, see if there's any wicked way in us that displeases our God. And maybe that's why our authors have chosen these kinds of passages where the prophets are calling out Israel, telling them of God's displeasure and God's coming punishment. Here, Mark leaves it out. well, I guess he talks about turning the tables over and all of that and being unhappy with what they're doing. He leaves out the part of Jesus taking his belt and turning it like into a whip. He's very angry. It's righteous indignation on his part that they're doing what they're doing to a place that's supposed to be a place of prayer for whoever comes, no matter where they're from. Again, we need to ask ourselves, am I living in a way that pleases the Lord? Am I living out the truths of my faith in a way that pleases the Lord? Or do I take things and twist them so that they please me, so that they're beneficial in some way for me, so that I can justify my own self in my own mind and then completely miss that it's displeasing to God? Here's our prayer for today. It is a Friday. Excuse me. Yes, it is a Friday. And so I've made a mistake here where I've been reading. I guess I went off on my own tangent there and didn't read what our authors had to say. We are all prone to turning things to our own advantage. Our hearts are deceptive and tend towards self-centeredness and self-gain. Like the money changers in this story, we can even see the people of God and the local churches we gather with as places of competition, consumerism, and self-focus. Even without knowing it, our sinful hearts cause us to ask, how can others meet my needs? Or how can the church fulfill all my expectations? Yet God's desire is that we should live, serve, and abide with God's people in such a way that we would think of ourselves last, that we would sacrifice for the sake of others in the church. This kind of selfless living is pleasing to the Lord. This being a Friday, it's also a call to fasting. And so the closing thoughts for today in the fasting and prayer are these. Each Friday during Lent, we invite you to fast, to literally hunger with longing for the hope of Easter to bless the nations. See the fasting guide in the front of this devotional for helpful details. Begin the day by asking God to reveal your tendency to use the church to your own advantage. During a fasted meal time, pray for the hearts of your fellow church members, that they would be prepared for Easter, and that this preparation would move them toward greater eagerness to participate in God's mission. When the fast ends with a meal, rejoice in the God who delights to give rather than receive. Blessings to you today. Sorry for the bit of confusion there on that one today. I hope you'll forgive me. Blessings to you today.